Welcome back, everyone. We're here again on YouTube and LinkedIn with another exciting episode of the Top Innovator Series. This is where we dive into game-changing strategies and leadership ideas, and of course, we hear from the brilliant minds behind them. My name is Josef Martens, and I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today. With us today is Pandora Ovanessian. Pandora is a fractional CIO with CMTC. Before that, she held tech leadership roles, including being a CTO and a CIO for various organizations, from startups to Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies. And today, we're thrilled to have her with us. Pandora, it's a pleasure to have you here in this conversation.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Pandora, as you know, our topic is leadership and your leadership journey. You're super successful in your journey. And I'd love to start with the question, when you reflect on your own success, when you reflect on your own journey, what do you think got you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because what I thought may have been not a very positive thing, it turned out to be very supportive in the businesses that I ran. So my background initially was science and pre-med and then business. And then later on, I took additional courses. So I in technology and started doing development in apps was my focus. So I think my signature strength is that I come from a very strong business background, and I applied the business strategy, the revenue growth, the margin growth, and being able to really make a difference on the bottom line with the technology. And so I would say that's my signature strength.
How do you get your teams, how do you win over your teams for that approach? And I'm asking because I imagine a lot of the technologists, it doesn't come natural for them. They're probably more likely to lean into the tech side. So how do you win them over? How do you get them on board with that?
I've worked on super major, digital transformations where 3,000 people go home one day and come in, and it's a big bang implementation of the top tier systems. And so winning your team, I think the key number one thing that is really significant is when I start at an organization, I really like to work at it again as a strategic way of what's our vision as an organization. And I do this together. And what's our mission that we're going to do? And what's our guiding principles? What are the rules that we're going to be successful? And that's generally broken up by customer service. And it's also innovation center, being partnered, and then also being accountable. So we break this up as a team and with the leaders. And as a team, we make a decision and agreement that this is how we're going to execute. This is how we're going to take this organization, and we're going to do the most difficult things, because nothing that when you're doing digital transformations, and one of the things that I grew up in was, take the hardest classes you can. So do biology, chemistry, physics, do the hardest classes you can with the hardest professors. So when you're in real life, everything is easy. And so taking that experience of growing up into super difficult environments, then doing those really difficult jobs really became easy. But the hard part truly is getting people on board, like you mentioned, and having them back you up. And before you can have them back you up, you really need to help them understand, what is this organization about? What's our guiding principles and values? And from there, we're able to now execute and make a difference. And we're going off the same book. Everybody has the same common understanding. And that also helps develop culture. It helps develop communication and team building or teamwork. So that's kind of the secret sauce that I use.
Got it. The way you phrase it, starting with the hardest things, it reminds me a bit of, I think it's a book title, Eat the Frog First. So start with what what the most difficult thing is. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to take those huge challenges.
Mm,
People, when I speak to a lot of people in my peer, and I go to some of the major peer groups here in Southern California of CIOs, it's almost as if, and I say this humbly, I've had the opportunity to have multiple uh, challenging roles that actually it just, now you just grow into it, to making it fun
mm,
and making
yeah,
it easy. I've been
yeah.
there.
I'd like to take a look at your journey from a different perspective by looking at the role models you had. I'm sure you had role models, mentors, trusted advisors, people who were following your journey. When you think of those, what is something you picked up from them? What is something you learned from them, maybe that still resonates with you today or that you put into your daily practices or into your leadership toolkit?
I think the two that really stand out is that one of the organizations that we were really going to make a big difference in huge transformation. This individual was the CFO, and he came from a company that he used to work with Larry Bossidy. And Larry Bossidy was working for, you know, the Jack Welch. So
Yeah.
Wells. And so I was working under him, his leadership, even though he should have been retired, he still enjoyed working. And he really helped me really build the leadership skills that make a difference. And I think the key word is execution. You
Mm.
know, we as technology practice could promise a lot of things and provide roadmaps and timelines and all these metrics is, but the bottom line is being able to execute on what you say
Mm.
and what you provide, no matter what. And so, in the journey of making these transformations, you realize that sometimes the ditch is deeper than you thought, and you've got to get past that. You got to get over it, and so you have to be very creative in what does it take to get to the next phase. And so doing whatever it takes to execute. And I think that was one of them. And then I think the other one that really was an amazing leader in Forbes magazine of, you know, the top 10, top 100 people in the United States. I had the opportunity of working for him. And he was also all about execution,
Mm.
and he really gave me the empowerment to support the organization to take it to the next level and support number one thing as a business strategist first. And so I was involved with all the
Yeah.
strategic planning. And from there, I would take all the strategic design and work with business leaders and develop the strategic plan and the roadmap of what they needed. Because what I think an
Mm.
organization, business unit may need may not necessarily be what the business leader wants. And so being able to build that vision and mission together and roadmap and bring it back to strategize within the organization. And then I think the third one, which and all these people are pretty well known, it just happens to be, and not because of, you know, that the fact that they're well known, but the fact that they really made impactful contributions to the
Hmm.
business world and the community. So these people impacted communities. And one of the things I really liked about this particular leader was the not only giving back to the community, but within the organization of being able to bring some competition even amongst yourselves so that who can come up with
Yeah.
the best design and best strategy, the best software. And so there was always this excitement of, you know, let's try to create two teams and see who gets there first and
Right.
how do we come up with a better solution.
Yeah. That's a nice way to induce some excitement or to make it a challenge, right? If we
It
find a
was
way to
really a lot
introduce.
of fun. Right, right. Because
Yeah.
we do a reward system, right? We talk about team
Hmm.
recognition and rewards, but this makes it a little bit different and brings more dynamics and fun of, you know, I did my job and you're rewarding
Right.
me.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And everyone likes a challenge, right? Everyone likes to win, of course, and that's what
Yeah,
the
it makes
challenge
it
is for.
fun, you
Hmm.
know, a place that you can enjoy to have fun
Yeah.
and work. So yes.
Yeah. Tell me about a situation, Pandora, where you thought you had a clear idea of how the situation is going to play out. So, some leadership situation, you went into the situation, you had a plan, you thought you know how this is going to unfold, and it went in a completely different direction. Something that completely surprised you, and it went in a different direction.
Yeah, I think that's a common question and experience in everyone that's a technology leader, because we can design everything, test it, and then implement something, whether it's
Mm.
an application or a service. Um, products that you're delivering, and there's always that element of surprise. But the key thing, and I will mention one specific one, so I'll start with a general. I think the key thing is, though, you eliminate the surprise factor to your clients, meaning your internal business leaders and your board. So those are important so that you're able to manage it and then eliminate the surprise factor, help them understand what's coming. But I think that one of the fortunate experiences is that I've been on a lot of companies where we did mergers and acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the mergers and acquisitions, everything looked absolutely perfect. And we did all our due diligence and we figured out how we're going to bring the data in and where we're going to put all the hardware and identify resources in these two locations. And one of the things that we found out is that the data was meshed into the two businesses that we were buying was meshed in with all the other data where the company was going to maintain its own. So there were 5 companies and we were going to buy 2 of them and then the 3 were going to remain. But the data was all together. And so
Wow.
being
Okay.
able to strip all of that, I couldn't believe that they did that, but they did it. And now the question was, how do we get, and we have a timeline.
Yeah.
When you do a merger, as you know, you've got to get through it within a month. And the challenge was, how do you get this information over to you within your cutoff time? And so it really, I mean, we were looking at 7-digit
Mm-hmm.
figures of having consultants do this. And even if we worked around the clock, it would not get this through.
Yeah.
And so we as a team came up, and I compliment the team members too, primarily because they came up with a very creative, non-technical solution, but technical method of being able to get that data and prohibit us in getting into millions of dollars of expenses and meeting the timeline. And it's too long story. I'll tell you offline how we did it, but that was probably one of the biggest surprises.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we were able to transition everything and move forward.
M&A is
So
a
that,
great example, because the complexity is such that it's really difficult to predict anything that might come out there. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of fun. It's great.
Mm,
But it's just, sometimes you could have those. And it was a very unusual surprise because
mm,
people generally divide their data in corporations. And this one was literally all throughout
single.
their entire database. So
Yeah.
that was one of the interesting challenges
Yeah.
and surprises.
I'd like to shift focus. We talked about the past. I would like to take a look at where you are now. And it's not a question about organizations or roles, it's still about your growth journey. When you look at where you are today, Pandora, what do you think is an area that you want to focus on for your own growth? So, what's an area where you feel this is where I want to have more, achieve more, or find my next level?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I'm going to answer kind of a big picture and then specific,
Mhm.
is that we've evolved so much in our world of technology where, code, then no code, now it's AI. And as we're evolving through these different transitions, we're really now becoming more and more strategic data analysts and business leaders, and less of the development piece of it, because you could literally build almost anything. And it's not so much the computer science expertise, but being able to understand how you can innovate, build business, provide bottom line. And so for me, the focus would be to continue doing that. It's kind of became it's circled around where, super tech and you've got to develop all this. And I learned all the different languages in applications and then later on architecture. And now we're really now thinking of this big data, machine language, and being able to use the analytics and be able to deliver products and services and support customer experience. So
Mhm.
where I see the next step is being able to use more of those skill sets
Okay.
and being able to make a difference towards that area.
Yeah.
I think the other part of it is that uh, all of this strategic designing of new innovation within the AI world, you not only need to know your data, but you need to understand deep understanding of processes.
Mhm.
And it's back to, where before people wouldn't look at that as much, is becoming much more critical because you can't build those roadmaps if you don't know how the roadmap already exists. So you can't build new roadmaps unless you know how that baseline works
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now let's peek into the future for a moment, Pandora. I know we don't have a perfect crystal ball and the future is murky, but let's speculate. Why not? If we were to have this conversation again in a few years' time and we talk about what has happened in leadership, what the recent changes were, what the developments were, what do you think we'd be talking about? Where do you think we're going to see the most changes in leadership?
That's a really good question. Where do I see the changes mostly in leadership? I think that I think we're going in again the same pathway where leaders are, especially in my field, I think they're going to develop more on the business level and less on the deep dive technical level.
Yeah.
That may be the case where I think is the direction. But I think leaders will still continue, even in the future, to build products and services using innovation. And I think that leaders will be more innovators more than anything else is being able to be strategically
Mhm.
bringing innovation so that you can grow the business, so you can grow the margins. So I think we're going to be more on that level.
Yeah.
We're outsourcing so much of technology right now, where I think right now, as you go into the future, fast forward 3 years, 5 years, we're going to be more innovators. We're going to be more designers,
Mm.
and creative uh, ideations of being able to do something that's going to make you different or get more market shares or bring a different differentiation to the business. I think that's where leaders will be recognized the most.
Yeah. So what I hear you say there also is we will see more connections between different faculties, if you want, right? I hear you talk about the combination with business again, and maybe the future is more in these connections between different domains.
I think it's business, it's innovation for products and services,
Mm.
it's building the customer experience and bringing more creativity to the marketplace, to the company, so that you can gain more market share. I think we're going to be focused more on that. I don't think it's going to be dramatically different than where we are today, but it is going to be stronger in that area. We're outsourcing so much where leaders can give that to a third party and only focus on how do we get smart about what we're doing.
Mm. Yeah, got it. Let me ask you one last question, Pandora, and then we're going to land the plane. If you could change something about how most leaders lead their organization, let's say you had a magic wand and you could somehow magically make a change in leadership, what would that be?
A magic wand to change. That's a really good question. Because I like all the facets of leadership.
Okay.
Um, and it does require not just building a team, but the dynamics of culture, um, the dynamics of being able to communicate on multiple levels. So I I I like what I do so much and all the different facets of what I do. So I don't have too many, things that I say, gosh, I wish I could, do away with this. So that's not the case for me. I would just say that if I could change anything is, so I'm a person that, obviously being in technology, you've got to love to learn. So I think being more, learning more about how you can improve your team, with the team building, better ways of being able to capture the communication, regardless of board level to business level to your IT team. I think the dynamics, there's always learning of how you can make the organization thrive better in regards to the culture and getting people motivated. So I think it's just for me, what would I change is I would still learn and grow in those areas. And I think one of the, I keep mentioning this, but I absolutely love ways of how I can come up with, building the margins. I know people like to look at growing the business profit wise, but I like to see where I can build efficiencies. What creative ways that we can improve what we already have? How do we apply more Kaizen within the organization? Use what we already have. I hear a lot of leaders going to the table and asking for more and more money, but I'm wondering how much you're not looking at what's already on the table and what you're already using and how you can leverage that. So I think that part of it is exciting to me, and I would want to continue doing that. So, and seeing ways that you can come up with bringing in more cost efficiencies,
Yeah, great point.
reducing.
It's always easier to ask for more money than to look for these efficiencies, though, right? Maybe that's part of where that temptation is coming from.
I think you got to build, you always have to take a look at what you first
Yeah.
have and build a stronger framework. I think that, from my background, I've always, Kaizen and being able to do continuous improvement. And we could put a lot of tools out there and keep products out there, but we also have to continue to improve what we already have. And sometimes by utilizing what you already have, you may not have to put that expense out there.
Got it. Pandora, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure having you in the conversation.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Josef. Appreciate it.
To everyone else out there, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and most importantly, join us again for our next episode of the Top Innovator series. And as always, keep your brain cells active.